Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you're watching this live stream in the miraculous age that we live in. It's live on YouTube, Twitch, which I don't even know if people my age are allowed on Twitch, but it's on Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook at the same time. That is amazing. And so today, my guest had to cancel because he got the COVID shot and had some reactions to it. And I got the COVID shot on my second COVID shot on Saturday. And I was so freaked out about all the stories I heard about how sick people were getting. And oh my gosh, I was just so nervous, and ended up that I was fine. I took a really long nap on Sunday and Monday, but other than that, hi Karen. Hey, I don't have a guest today. Would you like to come on? My guest had to cancel. If you want to come on and be my guest, be my guest, be my guest. It always reminds me of Beauty and the Beast. And so one of the reasons I'm still here, I'm still going live, is to show first time, I specialize in first time supervisors and managers and leaders. First time people leaders. It's just so different than managing projects to managing people and all the personalities and things like that. Oh, Karen says, sure I can. Okay, then Karen, let me send you the link. And I'm going to send it to you on LinkedIn. Okay, now just give me a second to find you. I like the new pictures you have. Okay, it'll take a second, Karen. You take your time, as much time as you need. I had this, take your time, as much as you need. I did this before one time on my Sunday show, Serendipity, the stories of serendipity and synchronicity. And this poor guy that came on, he was mowing his lawn. So he said, I'll do it. And so then he quickly came in, got washed up, put a new shirt on. Let me see. I just got another message. And I'm back teaching in my classroom. Yeah, so that was a new connection that Sam, if you're listening to me, my second daughter, Sam Olsen Gonzalez, connected me to Dan Tricarico. And he said he couldn't do it right now, but he would love to do it another time. So in the meantime, basically back to first-time supervisors, leaders, and managers. There's always going to be things that go wrong. There's always going to be things that either you forgot or your staff forgot or you're not prepared for, especially technology. So one of the biggest skills to work on as a first-time leader is flexibility and thinking on your feet and thinking outside the box. And well, if that doesn't work, what will work? What can work? So if you follow me, I love Toastmasters and doing Toastmasters questions. And so today's question, while we wait for Karen, is a delay tactic, which you can use for a meeting, for a phone call, for whatever. Just have something that you can say, hold on, put the person on hold. If you're at the public counter, if you're talking to someone in person, say, I'll be right back. And most people won't know the difference until you get the information that you need, or you compose yourself if you need to. Okay, Karen's here, but I feel like I need to do at least one table topic question. I love doing these, and the question, I've just randomly picked out 3, and the first one is, in which activity would you like a lesson from an expert? Karen, I can put you on, and if you want to answer these questions too before we get into talking about other things, Okay, there's Karen. Oh my gosh, you look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. How fun is this? Thanks for having me, Joan.
So much fun, right?
Serendipity.
Serendipity and synchronicity. And again, for first-time leaders that are listening, seize the moment and try things new. And people that look like they're brave are really just as scared as you are, but they're doing it. So the first thing that comes to mind, in which activity would you like a lesson from an expert? The first thing that came to mind is Serena Williams, because I might be in love with her. I'm a large woman, and there's not a lot of large women, especially in sports. Definitely not in tennis. And she is just she probably has zero fat. It's been nice to watch her. She started as a young person. Maybe I shouldn't say child, but she started very young, and to watch her age and to watch her now be a mother. And I'm just fascinated by the clothes she wears, everything. So I would love to have a lesson, but it might not actually be in tennis. It might be just on leadership and getting to know her. So would you like to answer that question, Karen?
Sure. You know what immediately comes to mind for me is TikTok. Probably because I'm on it a little bit, but not very much. And let's face it, I know that there is a lot of ways that people are using it for business now, but I would love to know all the ins and outs. But you know what? There are just so many social media platforms to try to keep track of. If I could just get a few tips. And I'm onto something with somebody that I ran into recently, but so he's going to help me, but I'm very excited about that. So that's immediately on my brain.
Well, that's interesting, because if I didn't get anyone to come on with me, I was going to talk about what I call cyberbullying that happened to me on LinkedIn. And someone took a post of mine and made fun of it on TikTok and then put it back on LinkedIn. And so I'm actually writing a 5-part article on it. And I thought, well,
gosh,
what am I going to do with my time today? And then I said, well, you know what? I can basically just talk my article out, which hopefully is going to be a chapter in my book, which I'm working on. So, but anyway.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's terrible. Mm-hmm. That's terrible.
Yeah. And it was by someone I know. So it's crazy. But this show is basically geared toward first-time supervisors, leaders, and managers. And usually we have time in the green room to kind of talk about things. Mm-hmm. And so do you have anything special to tell first-time people, managers? And I always have questions, and I have been doing research on what's of concern to them. And so if you don't mention it, I'll go out. I'll mention it.
Sure. Well, I'll start. When I was a new manager, I was working for the Gap in their corporate office. Ooh. And I was managing a part of a call center. Obviously, in a call center, your job is to be on time because you have to answer the phones because people start calling at a certain time. So let me just say that to say the obvious up front. So I had this woman.
I think I know where this is going. Is this foreshadowing? Go ahead.
I'll be curious if it goes the way you expect. Mm-hmm. Had a wonderful, very charismatic woman that worked on my team, but she was late a lot. Keep in mind, I was a brand new manager. I was afraid, probably like a lot of human beings, of conflict, especially at that time. And every time she was late, I wouldn't talk to her, but I would tally mark it. Did not have the courage, the guts, whatever you want to call it, to talk to her. Ended up talking to my manager and saying, we've got a problem with so-and-so. I'm going to call her Sue. That was not her name. Well, we've got a problem with Sue here. My boss did not do her due diligence either. The logical thing would have been, have you talked to her about this? So for any new managers out there, talk to your people first before what happened next. My manager said, okay, let's get HR in on this. So what happens? I sit in a room with my boss and this woman, and Sue, we'll call her, telling her that she'd been late 31 times in the past 2 months and that she was getting a warning. And it was, what? What? So it was definitely not my shiniest hour at all. It's probably one of my worst moments. I was shaking, almost crying when I was delivering this to her because I was so nervous. And if I had just had a conversation and said, hey, you know what, Sue? The requirements of the job are that you be on time. It's a call center. All the things that you've shared about why you're late are wonderful stories, and they may all be true. But maybe, the truth is maybe this just wasn't the right job for her. But the point I want to make is that I did not confront early, and it could have been so much easier. And that was a massive mistake. And I wanted to share that because it was very helpful for me to learn how not to do things.
People have mentioned in my research, people have mentioned that to me, and they also have mentioned a lot inheriting an underperformer. And so perhaps the culture of the person that you took, that you went into their position was, it's okay, everybody overlooks Sue because of this, because of that, because of this, because of that. So yeah, so to have the conversation is just, hey, what's going on? Let's have a chat. And that is scary. And it is very scary. And I had a client yesterday say that she likes to come from a position of strength always. And when she doesn't, she's very uncomfortable. And I said to her, what would it be like if you came from a position of neutrality? And it felt like her mind was blown. And so as first-time leaders, we do have to approach with curiosity and an extreme amount of patience. And so if you had to do it all over again, tell us what you would have done. And she still was late.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would have noticed the pattern first, not too long, but let's say in a given 2-week period, she was probably late about 3 times. So I would have noticed, and it's been about 3. I think 3 is generally a good number in communication. The rule of 3 is journalism, something we're all mostly familiar with. And so I thought that's what I would have done, is said, hey, Sue, I wanted to chat with you about something. And also to your point, Joan, about neutrality, I feel like now in my, many more years further along the line.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
It's so much, it's so interesting because I would get so worked up about these things, worried about what the other person thinks. And it is totally neutral. There's nothing personal about this. It's just simply, there's a job. We need somebody to do that job. And yet we get all of these emotions that we can get tied up in. So I would have just simply said to her, hey, I've noticed that you've been late a few times. And I know each time you had a different reason. And while they were legitimate reasons, this is a problem related to the job itself. Or before I would have said it's a problem, I don't think I would have honestly said that. I would have asked her if she was okay. Like, is there something going on that you want to talk about or something like that? So I think coming from a place of empathy first is so important. But also not leaving the conversation, just empathizing and just being, because I would say that's the lean that I had before I actually had more strength and confidence in myself as a manager. And to the point where, and she was so good at her excuses that anytime she was late, she had such a great story. Then we all got wrapped up in the story.
Oh, totally. I know. You know what? I feel like I have had one of those employees everywhere I worked, and they're tragic and they're so believable. And it's amazing. It's amazing that so many things can happen to one person. So let me understand. She would come in and she would say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had a flat tire." She would say something.
Yeah. Or, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe there was this dog that came into the road. And so I had to help the person. And I think
I supervised too. Yeah.
One time it was a deer. I mean, it was just
Totally.
she was so charismatic. That's the thing. And this is what I've also found hard, both as a manager of people in my past, and now I'm an entrepreneur on my own, but also as an employee and being a part of a team, kind of like what you said, Joan, there's always one of these people. When people are so charismatic and they're so good when they are with customers, that we overlook some of these things, which to me is very frustrating because I'm a huge justice person. Like, that isn't fair.
Right.
Like, that person gets away with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, going back to what I would have done differently, yes, coming from a place of compassion, but also balancing that with the needs of the job and saying, hey, this is a call center. The requirements are that you are here at 8 a.m. so that people aren't left hanging in some loop in voicemail. And, and so, at this point, of course, day and age, I don't know that I would have said maybe what I would have said 20 some years ago, is this the best job for you? But I do come from a place of care of and I'd say that anybody that's reported to me, I hope, at least based on the feedback I've gotten, is that I always come from this place of care and kindness. And yet, what did somebody call me? Like, the tough love piece as well. Like, this also isn't going to work for sustainability related to the requirements of the job.
Right, exactly. So when I work with first-time leaders, I do say eventually, or perhaps it's time, or what do you think about moving this process along to, a verbal warning, a written. I worked most of my time in government, so verbal warning, written warning, then it goes through a whole discipline process. But let me get some of the comments.
We've got some great comments.
A LinkedIn user, it's usually two people. It's either Vivian or Raina. At first, she said, yes, we try and avoid confrontation and or to disappoint others. That is such a big subject in my coaching business, in my research, that especially if the person has risen up from inside. Mm-hmm. So we were buddies. We went to happy hour, miniature golf, whatever, and or real golfing, and now you're late. And so then, as a first time supervisor or leader, I'm hurt too. Are you really doing this to me? Are you really making me discipline you when we're good friends? And then the next thing, and if it's Serena, she usually says, it's Raina. Okay, yes, empathy and holding compassion. And it's difficult. I'll tell you, it's very difficult. Over the years, I have had to teach myself the first thought that I'm a very big justice person myself, and that's not fair, and how come, and that has often not served me because life is not fair. And if life were fair, maybe I wouldn't even be sitting here for all the crazy things that I've done in my life. I've taught myself to never, ever say the first thought that comes to mind.
That is smart.
Because it's usually like not good. It's like, you seriously, your grandmother died again. How many grandmothers do you have? So that, since I'm not allowed to say that, anyway.
That's such a good point, though, to pause.
Pause. Oh my God. Stephen Covey talks about stimulus, pause, response. And the pause, I was just talking to a client yesterday, and he said that is one of the most profound things I taught him, which I didn't make up. I just repeated Stephen Covey. But the pause.
Oh, it's so powerful. Yeah, I have a talk called 3 C's to command any room with confidence. And a big part of what I coach on in general is the voice, but also, to your point, when to stop, when to pause, and how a pause, especially when we're speaking, can feel like a lifetime. And yet the effect is so powerful. And to the audience or to the person, whoever it is, it doesn't feel like any time at all. So yeah, that payoff is so important.
Yeah. And when you get more skilled at it, when you're disciplining or talking with an employee that needs help, you can make the silence work for you. To ask a question and then just wait. Ask a question, wait for an answer. So
absolutely.
Also, holding compassion for yourself as a leader is setting those boundaries around staff and office values.
Oh my goodness. It's so true. I feel compelled. Can I share another story, Joan?
Well, let me just get this last
yeah.
one in case it
Yes,
doesn't
yes,
go with
yes.
the next story. Self-awareness is a practice that can help guide us to being better and genuine leaders. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Let's have another story. I love stories.
Well, and that's all of these actually roll into this, especially that recent comment to self-awareness. So at this same job, well, I've always been obsessed with personal growth. So I always want to know, how can I be better? How can I be better? So I had a team of 5 when I was still call center at the Gap, just for frame of reference. And I decided to do a mini survey to my employees, but I didn't really know the thing or think about the anonymous thing. So that's fine. I just wrote them and said, can you give me 3 things I'm doing well and 3 things to work on, or one on each, just give me something on each side. So I gathered their responses and we had a whole meeting about it. And one of the things that was so helpful for me to realize from a self-awareness perspective is that I learned that I would put off meetings, my regular weekly meetings with my team, if a client thing came up. Mm-hmm. Now, you could argue and say, well, of course, clients are more important. And yet we have to serve our internal clients first, which are our employees or our team members, whatever your language is. And that was such a big aha moment for me, because I realized, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was a pattern. I thought I did it every once in a while, but they said it made them feel less important when I would put off their meetings. And I went,
they had their,
what?
They had their own tick. They had their own tick thing they were doing. But it's true. In fact, I'm telling you, I'm not making this stuff up. Yesterday, I had a client and she said, I only get to see my boss half hour every other week. And when I do see him, he's like this. I don't have my phone with me, but
yeah.
He's never fully present with her. And I said, how does that feel?
Yeah.
See, now, and when you're coaching, and also when you're first time leader, you do a lot of coaching. How does that feel? Now I have to give the person time to think about it. And I am a slow thinker, because I do like the difficult questions that go deep inside me. How does that feel? That's going to take me a second to answer. So I had to learn with my employees and with my clients to go, just sit patiently and let's wait till they were done processing. But
exactly,
that's another great story.
Yes. I mean, the being present. Oh my gosh. I recently did a video on this, that the best gift that we can give someone is our presence. Absolutely. To the exact point that you made. And it's funny, I have so many stories from this same job, because I was thinking about another one, because I had a new manager come in and I had been doing really well. I mean, so I had gotten good feedback from my previous manager and had delivered things on time and all the things that you do as a good or hopefully stellar employee. And this new guy comes on and I could do nothing right by him. And I would go into his meetings and exactly what you're saying, he'd be, oh, excuse me. He'd take a call. I just would sit. I felt so stupid sitting there passively like a little kid, like, okay. Wait.
Yeah.
And what I started doing, 2 things. This is a tip for anybody that is managing up. I started just telling him, I'm going to be seated at the table outside of your office. Other things. So whenever you're ready, and I said it very respectfully, like it seems that you're obviously really busy. And at this point, you're taking calls while I'm here. So again, observable facts related to how you want someone's behavior to shift. In this case, it was my boss. So I didn't want to tell him what to do differently, but I could say what I was going to do differently, which was, hey, I'm just going to sit outside here. Then I can keep working and being efficient and productive while you're doing your thing. Just let me know when you're ready. So that's one thing. And obviously you have to judgment call related to your boss and whatever, but that worked for me. And then the other thing that I would do, because he would often say that I said things differently in our meetings than I did, I started documenting our meetings and emailing him right after, saying, here are the 3 things that we covered. This is my understanding of my action steps. is that what what you thought too? Or it wouldn't even be needing a response, but it was essentially just a way to have a paper trail. And I found that to be super helpful. And then, as a funny aside, a year later, he was escorted out by security based on issues that he had. But it was such a good learning for me to really empower myself. What boundaries do I need to put in place to help myself in this situation?
And he ran away with Sue, and they got married. And
do you want to really hear a very sad and morbid end of the story? Like, seriously, it's probably not the best thing. I mean, it's really interesting. I ran into somebody 20 years later and said that he passed away. And I don't know what happened, but it sounded like there may have been more to the story behind it. I don't think it was a natural death. Let's just put it that way. Oh, anyway.
But that is a part of being a manager. And it's something that we really don't talk about is, death and dying and grieving and, all this crazy stuff that's happening in the world today and how are our employees dealing with it. But yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to end on that morbid note.
Well, it's interesting though, because today's talk was going to be on self-care. And I do believe that self-care is so important. And, the cortisol is just going to go shoot all over your body if you have a lot of stress and you don't take care of yourself. Because one of the bosses I had that was just very picky, I would write like a staff report that was 6 to 10 pages. And he would say things like, you missed a comma. And like there was never, oh my gosh, this is great. Oh, I can see you took a lot of time in this. And that guy ended up having I didn't even know you could have such a thing. Instead of a quadruple bypass, he had some sort of a 5 thing. So he had 5 things wrong with his heart.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, yeah. So, on that note, some people come into our lives to show us how to be, and some people come into our lives to show us how not to be. And that is one of the best things that first-time leaders, people managers need to learn, is to just listen and be curious and watch. Yeah.
Exactly. It's really fascinating too, because so much of the work that I do is around how people communicate. I mean, that's really what my specialty is. And helping people in the spirit of self-awareness that someone else had mentioned here, helping people recognize how they're coming across and how oftentimes we don't even realize it. For example, one of the things that I coach on is having a light expression to your face, especially when you're delivering challenging feedback or just in general. It's that whole RBF, the resting bee face, that many of us are familiar with. When you rest your face, you don't even realize that you're coming across as angry or whatnot. And I learned the hard way myself, because I'm generally a pretty jovial person and smile easily, but when I'm like the extreme, there's an extreme difference between my resting face and my regular face. But I can remember I learned the hard way where, for example, I used to travel a lot before COVID. And whenever there was a problem with the flight or something I need to approach that was a problem and I needed to approach someone like a gate agent, for example, I realized I would see their face when I approached, and I thought, why are they looking at me like, they were literally responding back to my
yeah.
Now. And so that's when I went, oh, this is the stuff I teach. I get it. I have to remember not that you have to smile during a serious situation, but it's the lightness. Hey, there's a big difference of the stimulus and response you were talking about with Stephen Covey and the pause. And I think too about Viktor Frankl, and he talks about stimulus and response too, but just simply making sure that, I have to intentionally remember my facial expressions before I approach someone versus the opposite. So it's amazing, all these little nuances and yeah, that we have.
Yeah, I've gotten that my whole life.
Have you?
Most people are very attracted to me, so to speak. And then a few people have told me my entire life, I was so afraid of you. I was so afraid of you, and you're not like that at all. But when I get into my fair and justice and thinking about how the world is, I do kind of go like, because I'm having these conversations and this fight in my brain, and it shows on my face. Sometimes I'll even go when I'm thinking about this story, and so yeah.
Well, I do think, going back to you were saying the self-care piece, in part, talking about boundaries is so important too. The ability to say no, or as I like to call it, no is a complete sentence. Maybe no, but remembering how powerful it is. So I'm thinking, even as a first-time manager, let's say your manager comes to you and says, I need you to do this or this, and your plate is already full. So many people will just take it on. And then, like you said, the cortisol levels will raise because they're so stressed out and they're working morning till night, as opposed to simply gently pushing back and saying, hey, I'm happy to do that, but I'm going to need to reprioritize my workload. What would you suggest what do you think we could do? Or here's my suggestion of what could wait for another 2 weeks while I take my time doing this thing you just asked me to do. Because I know when I was a manager, half the time, I was overall aware of what people were doing, but until somebody actually said, hey, Karen, like this is too much right now, then I would go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, well, we'll redistribute it then. But people aren't going to half the time know until you tell them.
Exactly. And I love how you just said to offer a solution. Say, okay, I can do this, and then I'm going to put this on the back burner or whatever. So I do tell people, in that instance, I totally agree. And I also tell them to ask, when do you need this by? And then, if they say end of the day, then I have a better idea of what I got to move around and things like that. And that's
so important. Oh my gosh. And that makes me think of, what Brene Brown talks about is to say, paint done for me. Or in my words, it would be, what does that look like? So for example, if you and I were working on a project together and we both said, okay, great. Or I said, okay, great, Joan, I'll get that done for you next week. And then, next week comes and done to you is not at all what you expected.
Exactly.
I'm thinking it's this perfect, end product. And so the simple, proactive thing that we can do is simply ask, let's just revisit what done looks like, or paint done for me.
I love that. I haven't heard that from Brene.
Yeah, it was a good, I took her Dare to Lead training, the 2-day training. And it was so powerful, all these little nuances that I picked up on that I hadn't in other places. But that's the one one of the ones that really stuck, because I continue to be amazed in this life that we live around communication and how things can get misinterpreted so easily. Things that I thought I was so clear. Or maybe the other person says, Karen, I thought I was so clear. And then we still missed the mark somehow and ended up not delivering what we each expected. So I feel like I'm constantly learning and constantly thinking, okay, what do I need to ask? What do I need to do to proactively circumvent anything that might happen that might make it less than successful?
Oh my gosh, so true. And it's just asking questions. And then if you asked me a question, I would be, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So next week to me means 5 o'clock on Friday. And you're like, oh, it means 8 a.m. on Monday to me. So,
exactly.
Oh, okay. And it reminds me of a story when COVID first hit. I'm involved in this women's organization, and we were doing a Zoom, and I had done plenty of Zooms, and this woman was just learning how to do Zooms. And we had 10 minutes before the meeting was starting, and she was kind of starting to freak out. And I was going, we have 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, I'm going to use the restroom, get a cup of tea, put lipstick on. And so we both said the same thing. She's like, we have 10 minutes. She didn't say we only have 10 minutes. She goes, we have 10 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, we have 10 minutes. So she was freaking out and I was not freaking out at all. I'm like, oh my God, we have so much time. And she was thinking, we don't have any time at all. But we were saying the same exact things. We just laugh about that so much. She ended up telling me she's an event planner. So in the event planning business, if Beyonce is ready to walk on in 10 minutes, we better have every single thing together, And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to run and get my tea. I'm just going to, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I would be with you. It's fascinating about perspective, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And something you said reminded me of, you said, now it was there and now it's gone, but it reminded me of one of my most favorite leadership books is What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall.
Yeah, I haven't read that yet.
Oh my gosh. Give me your address. I'll send you one. I'll send you a copy of it.
That is so nice. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Send it in the private message.
Yes, I won't send it here in the comments.
He said, as you get up in leadership, you have to remember that whatever you ask can be interpreted as a command.
That's powerful.
So we have to leave space for people to ask questions, to disagree. And it varies in cultures. I don't know if have you ever read any of Malcolm Gladwell?
Yes.
Well, he talks about the Korean Airlines, how they were having crashes. And it was because the co-pilot culturally was not allowed to ever disagree with the pilot. And so they had to do like a total culture change. So
it really is amazing. I mean, a lot of what I talk about when I do leadership coaching and such is around safety, trust, and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously everybody wants a culture of trust and safety. Like, yes, I want that, leaders, Well, where does it start? How do you get there? Well, somebody has to start being vulnerable. And usually it's the leader.
It's going to be you. Guess what? Guess who it is? It's me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure, Joan, you probably worked in cultures as well, like me, where there hasn't been that trust because of what you're talking about. Maybe not as extreme as the airlines, but enough where we get tied up in knots because we feel intimidated, or as somebody else said in the comments, I think earlier, just about disappointing people. There could be a plethora of reasons why we don't speak up, but then how sad that we miss all this innovation and possibilities for creativity. And if people just felt safe and accepted for who they are, then you've got everything you need right there. But clearly trust, cultures of trust have to start with the leader being just a little vulnerable.
Absolutely. Stephen Covey's son, Stephen Covey, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. And the lesson I got out of that, I get little lessons out of all the books I read. I couldn't tell you from cover to cover what they say, but sure. He said that if you have developed a level of trust, like multi-billion-dollar deals can be done in an elevator ride. And I've added to that, like, we probably don't even need to talk. Hey, remember that thing? And yeah, okay, well, next week, all right, yeah, done. Elevator opens and let's do it. Okay, bye.
Isn't that the truth? That's such a good analogy.
Amazing. And that takes time. And it takes patience and pain. It's painstaking. You have to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And to just know who you can be vulnerable with and who you can trust. That takes time also.
Exactly. And yeah, it is that finding that balance of also how vulnerable do you be? I always tell people, share a little bit. You don't have to bare your soul to people. You also have to have good judgment and common sense. But it is amazing when I always tell leaders, if you're not sure where to start with a mistake that you made. because that immediately bonds people together. When I used to work for Decker Communications, we would do one of our trainings began with an embarrassing moment. We used to joke that there's nothing quite like the emotion of embarrassment to bond people together. So it was more of a funny, we had people share the most embarrassing TV show that they watch, or they're sitting next to someone on the couch watching in their household if they really don't want to admit it. But I remember that always got a good laugh. And I do think that there's a lot of power in sharing the mistakes that you made. And in fact, I'm a huge fan of the CEO of Spanx, Sarah Blakely.
Oh my God, I love her.
Isn't she great? And I just love what she grew up from, what her dad gave her as an incredible gift growing up, how they used to sit around the dinner table and share every day how they failed that day.
Wow.
And it was in an environment where they were safe. They were encouraged to talk about the mistakes that they made, so that in the idea that, of course, you learn from your mistakes, and the more mistakes you make, the more successful you actually are. And I don't know many households, certainly not in mine, we would be talking about failure. It was more about how perfect can you be, and how performance oriented can you be. So that always has stuck out to me as something that is really cool, to normalize mistakes. And that draws other people in.
And then how many years later she's cutting up pantyhose?
Oh my gosh.
People probably don't, they probably don't even know what pantyhose are, but
that's right.
Oh my God. And still going, still moving into other spaces. And it's crazy to think that it's like Kleenex.
I know.
People say Spanx instead of girdle, instead of any other, like a support hoe or anything. They say Spanx, like they say Kleenex. It's just, or a Band-Aid. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a household name.
It is. It really is. Talk about somebody who's just also so real. There's a beautiful balance of vulnerability and real, and yet also incredibly professional. And she gets done what she needs to get done and gives back. I mean, my gosh, it's hard. It's such an incredible human being. Well, Joan, I would love to keep talking. I have a few more minutes, but I'm going to have to wrap pretty soon.
Okay, awesome. No, thank you so much for helping me out and jumping on. And you're always welcome back.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Oh my God, it's so fun. So I have 2 LinkedIn Lives. I have one on Sunday called Stories of Serendipity and Synchronicity. Okay. And today's Tuesday is called On Being a First-Time Leader.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
It's just the highlight of my life. But you're going to send me your email. You're going to send me.
I'll send you my physical address or my email.
Whatever. Send you the book. Yeah.
That's so nice. Well, for those that are listening, very grateful to be here. I love these moments. And like Joan said, for anybody listening to, seize opportunities. I just happened to see the notification come up and I went, oh, I have a few minutes. Let's talk.
And tell us how to get a hold of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am generally on Instagram most of the time. You can find me there at Karen Laus Consulting. Or my website is KarenLaus.com. But I do post regularly on LinkedIn as well. So I am around here. But my big thing is all around helping women step into their power to elevate and advance. So I coach on helping people see how they come across through their body language and their voice. And I am on Clubhouse a lot right now. Wow, so for anybody that's here and is on Clubhouse, I host 4 rooms a week. And that is the platform that I hang out around the most in. And that is at Karen Laus, which is my handle on Clubhouse. But then I also help people with their messaging. So really all under the guise of communication. How do you come across if you want to speak better on a stage or know how to speak up in a meeting? Because for me, I held back for far too long. And once I've actually found my voice and started using it more and not being dependent on what other people thought of me, things totally shifted in my life. And I really stepped into my power and unique my unique person, like each of us is. And then also the messaging piece, really helping people with how to be focused and concise, especially as a recovering rambler, I like to call myself.
I'm going to write that down.
We just don't get to the point most of the time. So being succinct and practicing that rule of 3 in journalism, there's a reason it exists, because it works.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. I'd love to see
you.
I'd love to hear what you have to say about the book. And last time we spoke, you worked at Dexter. So
yes, I know, it's a long time.
We have some stuff to catch up on.
I left Dexter in July, by the way, after 14 years. So
like
during
the pandemic.
During COVID, yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
All right. Unless anyone else wants to come on and talk to me, I'm going to close it out. Alani, if you're there, you can hop on and we can chat. And the LinkedIn user, we never did find out who you were. And yeah, what a great day. So the lesson for first-time supervisors, managers, leaders is just show up. Just show up. Suit up, show up, and see what happens. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh man, it's messed up. Just try it. I got a job one time that I had the wrong day. I was supposed to be there the day before. And when I got up that morning, I saw that I had 2 different dates on 2 different calendars, my work calendar, my home calendar. And I called them and I said, hey, was I supposed to be there yesterday? And they said, yes. And I said, well, is there anything I can do? This is such a great question to keep in your back pocket. Is there anything else that can be done? Is there anything else you can do for me? And she said, hold on. And she talked to the director of the department. And then she comes back on. She says, can you be here at 2:00 this afternoon? I said, well, I certainly can. And I got the job. I was a day late for the job and I got it. So just suit up, show up, keep trying. Don't give up. You just got to get up one more time, then you fall down. And thank you. I just love doing LinkedIn Lives. This just, oh my gosh, it just feeds my soul. And I love doing this. If you ever want to be on my show, reach out. And reach out if you want coaching, training. Mostly I'm on LinkedIn. And then I have joankling.com is my website. Toodles.